All right, good morning and welcome to the February 23rd, 2023 Strategic Planning, Technology, and Transportation Committee meeting. The time is 8:01 and I will call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 25th, 23 meeting. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Next up on the agenda is the Strategic Plan 2024 update.
Yes,
With
good
Michelle
morning,
Morris.
everyone. I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. Inside of your materials is an update on each of the current initiatives as part of the strategic plan. The same document will be attached in the FYI section of the materials for the March board meeting. I'm glad to take any questions that the committee members might have on this update and provide it to the initiative owner to provide you all with a response, because I probably can't answer the questions myself. Dr. Houlihan may have some information, but otherwise we can get that from the staff.
I just have one question. How do I tell you which category it is in? Theme D, engage parents and community.
Okay.
So it says under phase 2, design and implement a plan to improve family organizations at schools with low engagement, and it says completed. So is that it? We're completed on that?
My understanding is we're completed on the development of the plan, but we're still obviously in the process. We're still implementing and moving forward with that. Is that correct, Dr. Houlihan?
Yep, that's correct. That was just simply an initiative to create a plan. We're right now trying to figure out how to go about implementing it.
Then are we going to get an update on what the plan is?
Yeah, and I was going to ask the committee, pre-COVID, we had a schedule where at every SPTT meeting, we had a rotating basis where each initiative champion and owner came before the committee and gave an update. And so I'm not sure for the committee if that's something that you would be interested in us putting together some kind of a calendar moving forward where we can do that, Ms. May. And if that might be one of the first places to begin, we're happy to do that. But that's kind of we wanted to get the feedback from the committee, if that would be beneficial.
I mean, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Morial, your chairs. It's up to you.
I'd certainly welcome it.
Yeah, updates are always good.
So Michelle, if you and I can work together with staff, we'll put together a calendar and maybe we'll start with what Ms. May's initiative question was and create a monthly schedule for those updates.
Can do.
I have one question too, not regarding this update, but our next strategic plan. I know we pushed the 5-year plan back a year because of COVID. Where are we at on that? I know it's coming up pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, we had pushed the next plan out until it'll go into effect the fall of 2024. And due to COVID and because we're having the evaluation of the district by, is it Advanced Ed, Dr. Houlihan?
Yeah, I think it's now called Cognia. It's our accreditation process.
And so they would give feedback on where we need to move forward with the strategic plan. We've gathered lots of stakeholder input from students, from parents, from the board, from teachers, principals. And so we'll be working on that once we get through these initiatives and once the accreditation gives us other areas where we need to work. We're also trying to align it with the state DPI strategic plan.
Okay.
Ms. Morris, back to Ms. May's point about that line being marked as complete. Can we maybe add a line? So if we've designed and implemented the plan, that's great, but the plan should have like some success criteria, right? And I don't know if we have a line in there that monitors the success criteria and Because it does look like it's complete, right? We're not even going to touch it again.
So I can change that language that the plan was developed and it's being implemented, so it doesn't just say completed and look like that's the end of it. Would that help?
Yeah, I think if you change the status from completed to implementing and monitoring or something like that, that'd be great.
Sure.
Are there any more questions on the strategic plan? All right, hearing
here.
none, I'll move on to the next item. That was information only. The next item is the legislative agenda from Michelle Morris.
Yes, we, staff and I have developed this proposed legislative agenda for the committee to consider. In developing this, staff used prior legislative agendas adopted by the board, as well as legislative agendas from other North Carolina counties, School Boards Association, and kind of the issues that the board has discussed of, matters of interest in the last year or so. And so this is for your review, and the staff would obviously ask it to go to the board for approval and discussion, if appropriate, at the next meeting. And I can address any concerns or questions that you all have regarding the components of that proposed agenda.
I thought it was well laid out. I think it meets all of our current initiatives. Do we have action on this, or is this information?
No, this should be for action for you all to recommend approval by the board.
Okay.
So are you saying that these items all basically came from past asks on the legislative agenda, or there's some new items this year?
There are some new items. The vast majority are from prior, but we have either expanded on some, and then the number 6 and number 7 are completely new.
Okay, because 6 I realized because they had to make that exception for this year, and 7, yeah, I was surprised on that one.
Yeah, given the recent injuries that we've seen both in school, college, professional, and the need for immediate staff, we just felt that was important that we have important medical staff in a real timely fashion.
Thank you.
All right, I would like to
Yep.
make a motion that we I guess recommend to the full board the adoption of the legislative agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Our next item on the agenda is the transportation update with Colin Moore.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we had a couple questions that came out as a result of our January SPTT meeting. So we got a little presentation to address some of those questions you have. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Joyner, our Assistant Director of Transportation, who's going to make the presentation. Then we'll address any questions you may have after that. So Brian, if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Get this shared here. Are you guys able to see the presentation? Is it up?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll start off by, there was a question last time about our fleet information. So we just wanted to kind of cover, we currently have 313 yellow buses assigned by DPI in the Union County fleet. 213 of those buses are routed. They're assigned in the system. They all have runs attached to them. We have 34 of those buses are designated as spare buses by DPI. We currently have 56 non-routed buses. These non-routed buses are buses that we've parked over the years that may be used for spares or put back out on routes if deemed necessary. And then 10 of those yellow buses are designated to be sold by DPI. All right, our staffing update, we currently have 213 routed buses, and as of today, we have 19 vacancies. So that averages out to about 100. We have 194 buses daily that have an assigned driver. So that does not include our call outs, which can range anywhere from 10 to 30 per day. And we do define vacancies as buses that do not have an assigned driver. We wanted to include this slide for you guys. This is a picture of a weekly coverage board out of one of our area offices. As you can see, some of these buses may have up to 10 runs on them. And this is what our office staffs are challenged with on a daily basis, covering each one of these that are open due to call outs. We have requests for time off. Some folks are on FMLA. As you can see, you can imagine this could be very difficult and time consuming, but our folks do a fantastic job of trying to minimize delays to as little delays as possible to get the students to and from school.
And Brian, I think it's important. We got 5 of these going on across the county.
We do that. Yes, this is just from one office. This is not.
This is happening in 5 locations.
Yes, and we only have countywide, we only have 9 subs that are available, and those subs are not available every single day or available to every single area. We have some subs that only like to drive out of gold mine, they only drive out of Forest Hills. It's just, it's just all based on their availability. All right, so I want to go over the history of our fall student ridership. I've put this together dating back to the 2016-2017 school year, just to kind of give you some perspective on where we've been based on number of buses routed, number of students transported, and then just a basic average of the students per bus. Our annual student counts are usually performed in the fall, usually late September, early October, depending on how the school calendars fall. So during this count, we have our total number of buses, and these are numbers based on the driver counts of who is actually riding the buses, not the students assigned to the buses, but how many are actually riding. The only year that we did not do the fall count was the 2020-2021 school year, and DPI instructed us to do this count in the spring of 2021. As you could see, our numbers have creeped back up the past 2 years. We're steadily increasing, but our bus numbers are decreasing. And I have 219 buses for this school year because in the fall, we ran 219 buses. We had 219 buses routed when we performed student count. Based on those student counts, we were able to go through and trim back 6 buses to get us down to the 213 number. The average number of students per bus has went up. We are averaging 93.6 students per bus. Now, that does not mean we have 93 students on every bus during one run. That can be spanned out, over multiple runs.
What's the capacity on a bus, out of curiosity?
So for elementary, it is approximately 72. We have some that are 71 capacity. 72 is average, and that's 3 per seat for elementary. So for middle school, they range, I think, around 60 to 65, depending on the size of the bus. And that is calculated by 5 across. So 2 in one seat, 3 in the other. And also we try to, it really depends on, the students. For middle school, but high school is 2 per seat, which is about, 50, 52.
So can you elaborate a little bit on, we don't see 93.6 on every bus?
So this is based on countywide, just the number of transported divided by the number of buses. We go through and break it down in depth by school, exactly which buses have, we have it broken down when we turn the state county in, how many are transported per school, morning and afternoon.
So, Mr. Mariel, if I can jump in, we've got a slide coming up that shows you how many routes we're running, and that'll put a little bit better perspective. This is the number of students per bus. There's 219 buses running, but some of those buses are running 6, 8, 10 routes a day.
Got it.
That's where
Okay.
that's where that number will come down.
And this is how the efficiency is calculated with that formula too. And
Part of, yeah, some of this does play into that, along with expenditures and our driver salary data that we turn in as well.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we know how many, maybe this is a silly question, I'm not familiar. Who uses most of the bus transportation? Is it elementary school? Because I know I drive my daughter to school, so I see so many in car line, but I'm kind of curious who uses most of it. Is it elementary? Is it middle, high? Is that?
It varies. It depends on elementary school, really. We have some elementary schools that have the high ridership. Our middle schools seem to have the most.
Middle school.
Yeah. And that's just, as a general, the middle school generally is the most. The high school students are kind of hit or miss.
Well, they have their cars at that point.
Yeah, they do.
a lot of
They
them,
do.
so.
And, you got a lot of sports activities going on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some elementary schools, we have low ridership, for instance, in the mornings, where the afternoons are much heavier. It just depends on the school.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
So how is it relatable percentage wise to like our total number of students year over year? Because I feel like we're actually up in enrollment, but it looks like we're down in bus riders.
So you mean like average students assigned?
Well, like say back in 2018, where we had 22,000 being transported, but like what was the total enrollment that year for UCPS?
That I do not have, but I can get it and we can send that over to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can look back and get those numbers and send that out.
I guess it'd just be a percent of ridership.
Right.
I guess I think we trained parents when we went into 2021 school year to drop their kids off at school, and we've never really recovered from some of those parents that began taking their kids to school. And so I think that's the reason you see fewer students transported now than you did prior to the pandemic, because so many folks dropped their kids off during the pandemic, and they didn't go back to riding the bus as fluidly as they did prior to the pandemic.
So you're not hearing feedback that it has to do with like the long ride time, which is basically what we have to do at this point, but
I think it does have something to do with that as well.
yeah.
I mean, the double runs, parents don't want their kids on some double runs sometimes. And so I think some of those things have obviously played into it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think too, I mean, I understand what y'all are saying, but I think for me, my daughter was riding the bus for a bit, maybe 2 years, but I just feel like there was always some sort of issues on the bus because, there's one driver, or sometimes they had an assistant or something, but there would always be some sort of conflict with maybe some of the older kids, because my child's in elementary, so you'd have the older kids and they were kind of maybe bugging the little ones. I don't know. So and my daughter just didn't want to ride anymore. She would get frustrated. So I started driving her to school. But I don't know. That's just my experience with it. I don't know.
So Ms. Green, I think dealing with discipline on buses is really a three-way street almost. It's our drivers doing their part to make sure that they're doing what they should be doing, that they're maintaining discipline, that they're writing students up when they misbehave. It's communication with the students to make sure they understand what the expectations are. And then it's also the school end of things, because schools have responsibility for levying the discipline action when it's necessary.
Sure.
We are going to be meeting soon with AP at the AP Academy to reiterate all of the protocols that transportation uses on school bus discipline. And so hopefully that's going to also, that's something we're working with on our drivers. We don't want to lose drivers because of discipline. And we want to make sure that our schools are partnering with us in the best way possible to be able to maintain good discipline on the bus. And we want kids to enjoy their time riding the bus. We don't want kids to not want to ride.
Agreed.
Any other questions before I move on from this slide? Okay. So our run counts, currently we have 626 runs in the morning, and that does include, we run 79 doubles in the morning. Afternoons, we have 681 runs, and that includes 96 doubles. And keep in mind, some of those buses may take as many as 10 runs per day. We have some that run double for every tier of time allots for it. So it just depends on the bus and the makeup of where the bus is running at.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what a double run is as well?
So a double run is when you have, we route. So in the mornings, for instance, the bus would do students further out. It would come in, drop that group of students off, and then go back out to pick up another group of students for the same school that are in close proximity to the school, and still get the students there on time. Afternoons, it's the same concept, just reversed. We would take a group of students, and if they live closer to the school, we'll go drop those students off first, come back to the school and pick up students who live further away from the school. When we assign doubles or create doubles, our goal is to minimize the amount of time the students are on campus and try to be as efficient as possible with it. We want to get a group of kids off, large group off as quick as possible, come back, get those kids off the lot so the school staff doesn't have to hold them for a long period of time.
So what typically happens, like let's take an elementary school as a example for a double run. Do the students go to the cafeteria or something until their bus is back?
It depends on the school. A lot of the schools do hold them in the cafeteria. They'll hold them in the gym. We have some schools that drive us a radio in and say, "Hey, I'm coming back. Go ahead and get my second load ready." It's the schools have been very, very efficient with us and helping us, get those students out, get them on the bus for the second load. So it just depends on the school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Morrell, you asked a question a little while ago about the average number of students. Keep in mind that those averages also include places like CATA and early college, which have typically a pretty low ridership because those kids live so far from school. We have to run a bus with 10, 12 kids on it sometimes. And that obviously affects the averages as well as those buses that have to do doubles because they're overcrowded and can't handle all the students. So all those things are averaged in to arrive at the final average for our student count.
Yeah, I think the visibility into the doubles that we're running, that certainly helps. I mean, I was looking at the math real quick thinking, okay, our capacity is, 60, 70, and we're running 96 students per bus. So it didn't add up. So I just pictured like kids hanging out the windows, right? Like as it's rolling down the road. So thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the next slide, which you guys had asked for. There's been some questions about our propane buses, so we've gathered some data for you guys. We have what we did for the month of January. We have the top in the green are 5 propane buses. The bottom are 5 diesel buses. We pulled GPS data to try to get as close of a mileage similarity between the two as we possibly could. So propane buses, out of the 5 of those, they traveled 11,328.2 miles. Fuel volume in gallons, the propanes used 3,064.9 gallons for the month of January. They're averaging 3.7 miles per gallon. Cost per gallon for the propane was $1.72. And the fuel cost for the month of January is $5,209.63. The diesel buses, we had total of 11,314.7 miles for those 5 select buses that we pulled. They used 1,571 gallons of diesel fuel, averaging about 7.31 miles per gallon. Cost per gallon for diesel that we paid on average was about $3.64. And the fuel cost for the month for those 5 buses was $5,713.88. So it's about a $500 savings on the propane. And as far as maintenance cost goes, we'll need to have those buses for a longer period of time to actually get the rest of the maintenance costs. See how well they'll do over time. Any questions on that?
So just looking at the propane, if the price of propane goes up, they're not as efficient necessarily. So, I mean, they could cost more in the long run, potentially.
Potentially, if the cost of propane does go up. And diesel fuel is, it fluctuates. It's up and down. So
I will say that the long-term cost of maintenance appears to be something that will be of advantage to us for the propanes. I had a conversation with Gary Bowie from Davidson County. He's had propanes for about 5 years, and I think he's only had one instance where he had to take a bus off the road for service. The rest of the time, they've been really, really reliable. So that's my interest in them. Listen, if we can buy buses that are reliable and don't break down and don't need service quite as often, then we're obviously on the road and picking up students somewhere on time. So that's where I think the important part of this is that we hope we see the same type of service out of our propanes that he's seen out of his, because that's what you want to get is buses are on the road and doing their job.
Question 2 with the propane, how is it, like, from a safety standpoint, any like leaks or anything potentially with the propane? How's that handled or inspected regularly?
So our mechanics, they inspect them. They're on 30-day rotation. Our 5 drivers we have do a good job of, they do a thorough inspection of them as well when they're doing their pre-trips. So as of now, we've had no issues with it. So of course, if we do, we'll have the company will come down and service those if there is any issues.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? Okay, and that concludes my update.
This was great. I appreciate you sharing the information with us.
Absolutely.
I do have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know this was said at a previous meeting that the number of call outs that are happening daily, and not necessarily, sick call outs, is increasing. We have an attendance bonus that we put into play. Like, do we still feel like that's being effective?
It is for some folks, to be honest. It helps some people, others feel like it doesn't help. We're actually meeting with our drivers next week to gather feedback. I'm sorry, this Friday, we're meeting with our drivers to gather feedback on their thoughts on the attendance bonus to see if it's helping or not, because we've heard mixed reviews from our drivers as far as how they feel it's working. And to be honest, it depends on the area, and some folks losing $50 a week is not a big deal, to be quite honest.
I wasn't here before, so what can someone break down what the attendance bonus, what that is? I mean, I get what it's saying, but how does that break down?
Yes, ma'am. So every week the drivers are here and they run every route they're assigned. If they're asked to do another run in between, we try not to extend their day as much as possible. But if they're asked if they're full attendance, it's either you're here or you're not. They accrue $50 a week for full time. Our part-time folks get $25 a week. So that's paid out twice a year. We paid our first installment, the paycheck they received before Christmas, and the last installment will be paid their last paycheck of the school year. So it just continually accrues. Now, if they leave or resign, they forfeit what they've earned. So every week it resets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So your meeting, you said Friday,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you'll recap, and if you want to do something different, you'll just let us know.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Okay.
We're searching for ideas. We've tasked the drivers with giving us ideas of what they feel would work or
Yeah,
what they think would be, you know, beneficial to help address our needs.
yeah. Because I would think with, what was it, 96 afternoon double runs? I mean, if a driver's going to be dedicated and, you know, do every single thing they're asked, I mean, that'd be a very long without a break.
Yes,
Right.
they can be. They
Okay,
can be.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So with the update, I mean, if I do the simple math, right, more drivers help this situation. There's really nothing else that can be done. You guys are doing everything in your power, and I commend you for doing what you're doing, like thinking outside the box, trying to figure out how to run these buses in the most efficient manner and move as many children as you can. But without the drivers, it's just not possible to do anything further. Like to Sandra's point, the ride times, the you know, just the fact that there's like so much that goes into the equation of trying to run a bus efficiently. Just out of curiosity, like what is our earliest pickup time for an elementary school student? It's got to be like right around 6 a.m.
We try not to start them before 6, but we do have instances with McKinney-Vento or foster kids that live out of district that have to be picked up before 6. I can get the exact time, but
No, that's fine.
we aim for not before 6, but it's getting where, you know, some instances has to be earlier.
Where if you had drivers, you could pull those times in closer to the start of school. That would likely increase ridership, right, and cut down on car riders. I mean, I face it every morning trying to drive through Antioch, right? It's a nightmare, and you know, I try to leave before the car line starts or after, because I know it's gridlock, and I know everybody's doing everything possible. Like Mr. Childers is trying to be as creative as he can with the campus there, as I'm sure most of our principals are. So, but bottom line, without the drivers, it's tough really to do anything additional, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And you mentioned traffic, which is a good, you know, a very good point, because we don't want to create that traffic, because it also hinders our ability to do doubles efficiently. You know, the bus comes in, drops off, then when it goes back out, it has to get out of there and then try to fight that traffic to get back in. So that it can, you know, eventually throw the whole day off, the whole morning off. But you are correct. The schools do a fantastic job of managing those car rider lines. They do great with that.
Well, thank you again for everything you guys are doing. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Yeah, one of the first slides that Mr. Joyner showed was we got 56 buses that are not routed or not designated as spares. So if, you know, our vacancy number is a little misleading. If we could fill those 56 buses, then we could decrease the amount of double runs and make it a little bit later pickup. So little misleading on the 19 vacancies is what we have to staff the 219 buses that we have. But we could certainly run more buses if we had more drivers.
Well, and I mean, it's a nationwide problem.
Mhm.
Like everywhere is having trouble finding bus drivers. I can remember like back in 2014, I think we had 325 buses running. And probably the same amount of students, if not less.
Mhm.
But it's a huge problem.
You're right.
For those of you that may have missed it, Chapel Hill Carrboro just raised their starting rate to $20 an hour this past week, and I don't know how. Who knows where it stops, right? I mean, it's just a very big challenge. It's a budgeting issue. It's they are the best funded system in the state, so I don't think they have an issue with budget as much as other folks might. But it is something that obviously they are trying to address, and we'll see how that domino falls now that that's been done.
Where were they at previously on their pay?
Somewhere around Matt, I don't remember, to be honest with you. I think it was somewhere around 17, but I'm not positive. I had to go back and look it up.
What's ours again?
Ours is 17. Brian, what are we, 17?
1729. We start at
1729.
1729.
Oh, and what's the average per week of bus driver, like hours?
Full time it goes 30, and then we have some people that get up to 45, 50. It just depends on the routes.
I think one thing, Ms. Green, that might help is more full-time type
Yeah.
employment. And that's not just 8 hours a day, it's also 12 months a year. And
Okay.
it's something we're looking at, it's something we're throwing around, trying to figure out if it can work for us or not. But I think that's what we see is a lot of our trainees come in and they drive for a short period of time and figure out that the money's not going to be there, particularly for the summer, and they decide to go drive a garbage truck or dump truck or whatever else, and because they have the full-time hours, during the entire year. And bus driving was never really made to be a full-time position. It was sort of way back when I drove, like I told you this last time, when I drove early in my career, it was high school kids drove, and it was a couple hours a day, and got extra money. And as we have grown as a society and things have transitioned, we find that now we're competing with full-time positions, and it's very difficult to do that when you have folks that need to support a family and they can't do that on the hours we provide.
Sure.
I have a question. Did you just say that we have some bus drivers that drive 45 to 50 hours a week?
Yes, we do. Some have midday runs. And then we have long, there's long routes. Some of the buses that leave, Parkwood, for instance, we've got a bus that leaves out. Some runs leave out as early as 5:15, 5:30.
And is Parkwood, and are they still doing just the two where the middle and high school ride together?
Yes, so Parkwood, Piedmont, Forest Hills, the middle and high ride together.
Okay. Wow.
Those are the only 3 clusters that do?
Yes, ma'am.
Porter Ridge doesn't do that? Oh,
They
no,
do
Porter
not.
Ridge doesn't
Yeah,
do
they
that.
ride separate.
That's right, because they, okay. Well, dang, that's a
And
lot.
as far as the transportation routing software, where are we at on that also?
So we are we have implemented Smart Bus almost to its full capacity. We do have the latest state sponsored version of our TIM software installed, and so that provides us the capability to be in compliance with all the Smart Bus requirements. There is a new product they have called Athena, and we are looking at implementing Athena, but we're too close now to the end of school for us to try to put in a new software and kick off the school year next year. So we're going to be looking at Athena, experimenting with it some, but we won't be putting Athena in until probably the fall of the year, 2023. And our hope is to get that in and fully functional for the kickoff of school for 2024. And that's a completely different routing software. It hopefully will be easier to manipulate. It'll have some features that our current software does not have, and allow us a little bit better tracking capability for our students, a little better reporting capability. But some of those things we won't know about fully how they work until we actually get the software installed and start using it.
Can we, I guess, implement that in parallel with the current system and kind of test it out and not have it in production, but where you can run different scenarios and whatnot?
We've
And have
already
staff
begun
trained
that.
up on it.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
already begun that process. Mr. Helms, our TIMS folks have been working with Edulog. They have access to the system, to the Athena system now, and they'll be learning on that system as we go throughout the spring. But we just didn't feel comfortable cutting over during the summer this year because there's just not enough time for us to fully vet that system and figure out how it's going to work when school starts. And the last thing you want is failure of a system when your school starts up.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thank you. Is there any more questions on transportation? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, everyone, for the update. Our next meeting date is scheduled for March 23rd, 2023 at 8 a.m. And the information I have taken to the full board is the legislative agenda.
I apologize. I think I have a typo in the agenda. I think it's March 22nd is the next one. The 23rd is a
Okay, Mar-
Thursday. I apologize.
Okay. Well, me and Joe might have some discussions. It might be on Thursday potentially. So we might move it to a Thursday moving forward.
That may
but
be
we
why I
need some-
put it that way, because I do remember
Yeah.
Mr. Morial mentioning that. I may have done that
So-
on purpose, not an accident.
Yeah, good job. Yeah.
We,
Well, I
we have appeals Thursday.
We have appeals on Thursdays at the
Okay,
end of
yeah,
the month. That we have appeals, so that might not work.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can talk about, I think appeals usually start at 9 and depending on how quickly we can get through SPTT, but it would be hard for folks who are on appeals to get here in time.
Yeah,
Right.
because we have this and then we have to go down to
Yeah.
downtown. Well, I have to go downtown. I don't.
Well, we'll discuss it. It'll either be March 22nd or 23rd, 2023 for the next meeting.
And
And,
Mr.
like I
Allen,
s-
before you close out, I know we don't have a technology update, but I do want to take 5 seconds to say a big thank you to Mr. Parker and his entire tech team. In the last 30 days, they have deployed on their own over 3,000 brand new laptops to our staff. And that process covering 53 schools plus central services. Jay, you and your team have done an outstanding job. So I just wanted to be on record to say publicly, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Julian.
High five.
Yeah, thank you. All right, does anybody else have any other information? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Oh,
Second.
second. Sorry. My bad.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
We adjourned.